Hey everyone, this is Dr. Marley, Christine. Feedback and why we give feedback. First, we give feedback to justify the grades that we're giving them, but feedback is really more supposed to be about helping them to improve. All the research says that students need feedback and not just to justify grades, but also to learn and to improve. For our students, grades and feedback really reduce uncertainty, and it helps them predict behaviors and adapt their behavior. In a face-to-face class, the students take an exam, let's say it's on Monday, and during class on Wednesday, I either return it or mention when I'm going to return it. If I don't, one of the students is going to ask, at least the first time, trying to figure out when they're going to get feedback from me. They'll begin to look for a pattern to follow. There's some really interesting research that says if our students have successes early on in the semester, then they are likely to build up their confidence and they will stretch themselves much further. This is why I do the syllabus quiz. It's super easy. They get some points. They're feeling good. And so then when I ask them to do something just a little bit more complicated, they'll be more comfortable and they'll provide that. And they'll, even if their topic is a problem, we'll work through it and they'll get some points and they'll start to feel like they're moving on the right track. So the thing is that if they take a test online on Monday or they do an essay or a forum or whatever, and it just sits there and they don't know how to figure out the pattern, and there are so few norms that the students have that they can pick up online, they generally don't even know how to ask you about when they will get a grade or when they'll get feedback or even how to ask for more help than you've already given them. So I realized just how intense this was. Most of you probably know I have Parker, my son, at home, and he's taking his college classes online, and he took a test, and he came into dinner, and he said, I finished the test, and I think I got a 86 or whatever on it, and he was calculating out what exact score he would need to get an A, to get a B, and what would happen if he did really poorly on it. Would he drop down to a C and all this kind of stuff? Within 24 hours, it was all my son talked about. We were losing our minds listening to him get distressed about what his score was. And he talked about it incessantly, and it was really distressing to him that he had gotten no feedback. And for whatever reason, when we're sitting in our houses and we're staring at a computer screen, the amount of time that passes, at least for our students, will feel like just eternity. And I know that on my end of it, I think I've just gotten these. I have plenty of time to respond. But what we don't understand is that our students are sitting there staring at the computer screen, and all they want is some kind of feedback. And one of Parker's professors, a computer science professor, gave feedback really quickly. He had a system set up already that worked really well for it. But when I asked Parker why he was never stressed about his grade in that particular class, it was because that professor continuously kept them up to date. So when the assignment was done or due, he would send them a short email that would say, I've received all of the assignment. And then he would, if he didn't grade them right then, he would tell them when he was going to get them graded. And he also would tell them along the way. He would send another email out that would say something like, I've posted the criteria, or I've posted the key to the test. Something like that that would give students one more piece of information that would keep them going. These all happen within 24 hours of turning in the exam. So they're getting quick feedback, but it's not so much work on the part of the professor. One of the things that I do is, as quickly as I can, I look quickly over the answers and I see if there are going to be any big problems or anything that I have to really be concerned about or something I could really highlight positively. And even though I don't put grades on them at that point, I will frequently then do a really short video. Usually I just do it on my phone, where I'll say to my students, all right, so I've gotten all of the papers, or I've gotten all the presentations or videos or whatever it is, and while I have not put grades on them, here's some feedback that I've noticed. For example, everyone in the class did a particularly nice job with citing their sources, or let me give you an example of the student who did audience assessment really well, and then I'll pop up a picture of it. Never put something up without asking the student first. But if you're going to use their stuff for positive, then they'll be very happy to do it. And in fact, never use an individual student's work to show negative. Go out on the web and find one, create your own, whatever. If you're going to do negative stuff, don't use your students as examples. Let's look a little more closely at what feedback actually needs to be. So if we look at the corporate world and the research in the corporate world, we find that corporate feedback should have some kind of evaluative element compared to some criterion, some kind of appreciative feedback, which is the relationship feedback, and then some kind of coaching feedback, which would be, and here's ways you can improve it. If we look at quality feedback, we'll find that it invites follow-up with improved work. It is actionable. It is in process. It is clearly communicated. Remember the 5 C's: clear, concise, complete, concrete, and consistent. You want it to be user-friendly. Show them how they can fix it for the next step. Concrete, be specific. I usually will pick out a sentence if I'm going to talk about like grammar or something, and I'll be very specific with that sentence and say you need other areas that also have this problem. Get focused on what you want them to really improve on. What would be the next best step? Make sure it's complete. This usually involves some kind of differentiation, some comparison contrast with some kind of established criterion or goals. And then it does need to be timely. Now, you can do this timely in stages. I frequently will do an overview video that just says, yeah, I've looked at these. I don't have actual grades on them. So, but in some way, it needs to be, you need to get students something back quickly. Something. They need to hear something quickly, or they will begin to distrust you, and they will begin to not trust the process of actually learning from you. So I know we've all heard about the professor who doesn't turn anything back, or it takes months for them to get any feedback, and students are completely clueless about what's going on. And the real problem with this is that you have a social contract with these students. This is reciprocity. There are expectations. They turn something in, and the norm for face-to-face classes, the norm for at work, the norm for how humans engage with one another. When I turn something into you, the expectation is that you will provide me with feedback. And as an instructor, the contract says that you will provide feedback. I don't mean a contract you sign. I mean the social contract that we all live by says that you will give the students feedback, not just a grade, but also information that will allow them to be better students. This is the social contract we signed on for when we became instructors. And if we provide quality feedback, we are going to do a lot of things. We build trust, we help people achieve their goals, we influence the engagement, and we reinforce individual accountability. So here's some tools that can help you be more timely. The first one is a rubric. If you go online, you'll find that there are dozens and dozens of them, and you can adapt them to your own personal needs. And as you can see here, I have a photograph of a rubric that I use, and it has all these different categories, and it says what, from one end to the other, what would make it look really good. Notice that I write a lot of stuff out to the side on these, and then I just put check marks, or I might circle something within a particular box. And most of mine have actually been constructed because I collected the common feedback that I was giving to students. I did that actually in a Word document, and it became clear that I could do some repetitive things. And of course I had a grading sheet, sort of a set of criteria that I started with, and then it turned into a rubric. And so you can do feedback in a lot of ways, but one of the things you want to do is you want to gather the feedback for all of the different levels of criteria, all of the different criteria that you have. And then from there, you can shorten the amount of work you have to do. One of the other ways is you can do an audio and video recording as you're reading the paper or as you're grading the assignment, and just speak as you're doing it. And that will also give students some interesting feedback, and it'll be in sort of a real time kind of thing, which students do appreciate. So if we look at the next one, we see that this is a more of the criterion sheet where I list all of the things I'm looking for in a particular assignment when I grade it. You do want to address all the areas that you have expectations for them in. In fact, you want to make sure you have a couple of good comments. And so with these, I write in, how many sources they had and what exactly they did with the sources and did they do it well. And if they didn't cite a source well, then I might say, for the next time, here's how to do your sources correctly. I pick the pieces that I want them to improve first and which will make a big impact. I recommend you collect feedback comments or a rubric or some kind of standard set criteria to streamline your comment creation. And of course, you do want to personalize these. So Gentry and Young found that negative feedback, particularly negative process feedback, can be a powerful tool for leaders to use when working to motivate employees to get better. What you do is you say, this won't work, so let me give you the behavior you need to change to fix it. So in a recent study with college students, the University of Akron researchers found that positive outcome feedback and negative process feedback are what motivate individuals the most. There has to be some sort of check-in where they can get feedback and then they can improve on it. So one, you have to receive some positive feedback. That positive feedback certainly can get individuals to seek additional information, but not as much as this negative process feedback. These are the most motivating types of feedback, and the academic research clearly shows that this feedback that provides specific actions that students can take to be better is the most powerful kind of feedback you can give. We need to make sure that students have the opportunity to show us that they understood the feedback we gave them. You need to keep your virtual gradebook current. Your online gradebook should be the place where your students can consistently go to assess how they're progressing in your class. Your gradebook is the most important tool you have as an online instructor to help you communicate to a particular student their personal progress in your class. Keeping that gradebook up is significant to your students. In sum, feedback is important. Feedback is important for developing trust. Feedback is important in order for your students to improve. And done right, feedback doesn't have to take up all of your time.